The 1973 presidential inauguration, a re-election triumph for Richard Nixon. In the VIP enclosure, the White House Chief of Staff, Bob Haldeman, shot a home movie of his colleagues celebrating. But behind the victory smiles, the president was entangled in a criminal conspiracy. The chairman of his campaign committee, John Mitchell, had sent a team to break into the Watergate to bug the Democrats' headquarters. When they were caught red-handed, Nixon had launched a cover-up of his links to them.
We had pretty much maintained our silence through the pre-electoral period, understanding, of course, that if Mr. Nixon were defeated, we'd be going down the tube, too.
Nixon's presidency was now hostage to the continued silence of Howard Hunt and the other Watergate defendants. After the election, a call from Hunt came through to one of Nixon's closest advisors, Charles Colson. He knew it could only mean trouble.
I taped it in order to protect myself.
How are we doing? Well, about as well as can be expected. How are you? Just about the same.
In fact, I was setting my own, preparing my own noose, because the things he said in that tape were furthering the cover-up.
We're protecting the guys who were really responsible. But now that that's, of course, that's a continuing requirement. But at the same time, this is a two-way street.
Mm-hmm. I told him that loyalty is a two-way street. We'd been loyal to them, they hadn't been loyal to us.
We think that there's a time when some moves should be made, and certainly the cheapest commodity available is money. These lawyers have not been paid.
I was trying to shut him up. He was talking about money, and I knew what was going on. I mean, in my heart of heart, I knew this guy was blackmailing us.
Richard Nixon is a person of rather narrow interests. You'll never catch him building a sandcastle. We would go out in the beautiful clear waters in the Bahamas, and it was always business. Same thing on the beach at San Clemente.
After the inauguration, Ehrlichman was with the president at the Western White House in San Clemente. They had to deal with some alarming news.
The Senate tonight voted 77-0 to establish a select committee to investigate the Watergate bugging case. The committee will be headed by North Carolina Democrat Sam Ervin.
One of the president's first questions is, what is all this off on the horizon, no larger than a man's hand? What is this Ervin committee?
Nixon feared the cover-up could not withstand a Senate investigation. If they didn't act quickly, the Watergate conspirators would be put on oath and grilled before the television cameras.
He put some pressure on both Ehrlichman and me as to, what are you doing to get this thought through, game planned, or whatever you want to call it.
Haldeman and Ehrlichman shut themselves away in a luxury resort with the man who was organizing the cover-up, the president's lawyer, John Dean.
On the second day, we really got down to the bottom line, and that was, and this is the premise of the entire session we'd had, was that all those who had been arrested were going to remain silent. And Ehrlichman finally asked me this question, and I said, there's no way, I don't know if they're going to remain silent.
I mean, they were caught red-handed. The question was whether the White House was involved. And it seemed to me that the line had to be drawn between those defendants and the White House.
And the answer was they were going to have to be paid off.
Envelopes stuffed with cash had been dispatched to Howard Hunt and his men to keep them quiet during the Watergate trial. Now, on the eve of sentencing, he asked for a lot more money.
The problem was that these amounts were insufficient, way, way, way under what the requirements were.
Hunt threatened to expose a different break-in, one that could be traced straight back to John Ehrlichman at the White House. This break-in was directed against Daniel Ellsberg, who'd been put on trial for leaking Vietnam secrets. An operation to search for dirt on Ellsberg had been approved by Ehrlichman. He'd sent Hunt to examine all the medical files held by Ellsberg's psychoanalyst. Hunt reckoned that the White House would pay a lot to keep him quiet.
All of us were headed for prison, and that something ought to be done, should be done, and if they didn't, then dire consequences for the administration could result. Just a plain statement of fact, not a threat.
Hunt's message got through to the White House. John Dean realized the cover-up was getting out of hand. He steeled himself for a difficult conversation with the president. Unknown to Dean, their meeting, like all those in the Oval Office, was recorded on Nixon's hidden taping system.
After some idle chit-chat and chatter back and forth, I said something to him that I hoped would get his full attention.
We have a cancer close to the presidency that's growing. It's growing daily. It's compounding. It grows geometrically now. And there's no assurance that won't bust.
And then I began to tell him what that cancer was. And it was the cover-up that was literally going to eat his presidency alive.
Now, the blackmail is continuing. Hunt called one of the lawyers from the re-election committee on last Friday to meet with him over the weekend. The guy came in to see me, to get a message directly from Hunt to me for the first time. Pardon? Hunt is on bail. Correct. Hunt now is demanding another $72,000 for his own personal expenses, another $50,000 to pay his attorney's fees, $120,000. Wanted by the close of business yesterday.
Let me say, I did consider the payment of $120,000 to Hunt's lawyer and to Hunt for his attorney's fees and for support. I considered it not because Hunt was going to blow, using our gangster language here, on Watergate, but because, as the record clearly shows, Dean says, it isn't about Watergate, but it's going to talk about some of the things he's done for Ehrlichman.
Hunt now has made a direct threat against Ehrlichman as a result of this. This is his blackmail. He says, I will bring John Ehrlichman down to his knees and put him in jail. I have done enough seamy things for he and Krogh that they'll never survive it. Ellsberg and apparently some other things.
Dean tried to persuade the president that Hunt's blackmail threatened all the inner circle, especially Nixon's close friend John Mitchell, who had authorized the Watergate break-in.
I wanted to paint the worst conceivable picture based on all the facts I could draw together as quickly as I could draw them together on what was going on, so he would say, we've got to stop this immediately.
Plus, there's a real problem in raising money. Mitchell has been working on raising some money, feeling he's one of the ones the most to lose. But there's no denying the fact that the White House and Ehrlichman, Hallam, and Dean are involved in some of the early money decisions.
And I pulled out of what I thought was thin air an astronomical number.
I would say these people are going to cost $1 million over the next few years.
You, on the money, if you need the money, I mean, you get the money.
Well, I think that's where...
Well, you can get $1 million, and you can get it in cash. I know where it can be done. I mean, it's not easy, but it can be done.
The president said, you better damn well get that done, but fast.